Okay, so welcome everyone to Getting to the Roots. This conversation is all about adaptogens, and it's in support of AAPI month as we uplift and celebrate our Asian American and Pacific Islander community. Many wellness modalities on WellSet are rooted in Asian cultures, and we wanted to bring together this incredible panel to shed light on their origins and share their stories. So I wanted to also let everyone know that I'm sharing the direct link to hashtag Stop Asian Hate. So you can donate there directly if you have the means. And I'd love to introduce our host for this event, Alice Hu, an incredible human being, but also a corporate mindfulness consultant, sound healer, and founder of the Woo Woo Company, a guide to all things woo-woo, spiritual, and holistic health. She's also the founder of the Into the Woo podcast and works with clients one-on-one to help them heal and discover their purpose. So Alice is going to take us through a meditation to get us grounded into this space, and then she's going to kick off this wonderful panel. So if you have any questions throughout this conversation, feel free to use the chat. We're going to be answering a few prepared questions, but we have time at the end to answer the questions that you send through. So Alice, take it away.
Oh, thank you so much for that introduction, and welcome everyone, and a big special welcome to all of our speakers, Nimisha, Dr. Ahnee, and Shizu. So it is just such a wonderful opportunity to be able to speak about adaptogens, Eastern medicine in this month, Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. So often it feels like Asians are forgotten in this space where so many of our modalities and practices are being shared. So tonight's conversation is really just going to be one where we explore these topics, share our stories, and answer any questions that you have. But to really create this space, let's start off with a grounding meditation. So wherever you are, root down through your feet, through your sit bones, and close your eyes. Begin to focus on your breath. Notice how your mind and body feel today. And we'll start with 3 cleansing breaths. So first, empty the breath out. Take a deep breath in through the nose and sigh it out through the mouth. Take a deep breath in through the nose. Let it go out through the mouth. Final breath in through the nose, holding at the top. Nice, easy exhale out through the mouth. Breathing in and out through the nose now. Allow your breath to lengthen. Allow your breath to deepen. As you bring your focus to your breathing, it really calms the mind and the body. And I invite you now to imagine roots growing from your body down into the earth, allowing you to feel safe and secure. Continuing to focus on those intentional inhales and intentional exhales. And allowing yourself to feel more at ease and more relaxed with each breath in and each breath out. And as you bring your hands to heart center, taking a moment of gratitude. And bringing your hands to your face. Opening your eyes as you are ready. Coming back to the present moment and the present space. So first off, introductions. I will start with Shizu, who is off camera today. Shizu, please give a quick introduction to yourself and to your company. It's so wonderful to have you here.
Thank you. And I would totally be on camera, but just for context, guys, and I'm going to investigate already into this adaptogens for styes because I have a stye on my eye. Anyway, on a brighter note, I am the founder and CEO of a company called Apothekary. It is a natural pharmacy with an F. We provide clean alternatives to over-the-counter drugs and supplements. We are a service that basically, if you walk through CVS and Walgreens and you see those opaque bottles of pills and capsules, we aim to provide a clean and better plant-based medicine solution for that. I formerly worked at Goldman Sachs on the trading floor there doing distressed equities and distressed debt. And then I started my first company called Drink, which was a juice bar, which got acquired last year. And here I am today. Thank you so much. And yes, thank you, Alice, for that very grounding meditation. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Shizu. Okay, next up, Dr. Ahnee. So wonderful to have you here. And FYI for everyone, somehow we are all in San Francisco in the area, which is so funny.
Thank you, Alice, and so nice to meet all the panelists and welcome everyone who's joined us. I'm Dr. Ahnee Min-Yau. My company or practice is Tao Natural Healing, based here in San Francisco. I provide acupuncture, herbal medicine, mind-body therapies, and I also incorporate nutrition and lifestyle into my protocols. I think it's so essential for people to realize how all this stuff is integrated. And that's really the essence of Chinese medicine, to really treat the whole person and find the root cause of an issue, a health issue. I'm excited to be here. I think just a little background about what got me to this medicine. I always like to say it found me after losing my mom to breast cancer and also struggling with my own fertility challenges. I found that Western medicine has its great technology and a lot of solutions, but I was looking for some natural and more complementary therapies to help change and heal the body. And one of the realizations I came to after losing my mom to breast cancer was that our health is so important. And when we are healthy, we must strive to protect it, and that truly prevention is the cure. And so I'm a big proponent of educating my clients and the communities around me about the power of natural medicine and to protect our health and to live in our optimal health. So great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story. Nimisha, you're up next. What's your story? What is your modality?
Yeah, so great to be here with all of you. So I am a reproductive and gut health nutritionist. I practice functional medicine and Ayurvedic medicine. I have a virtual practice here in San Francisco, and my practice is called Moon Cycle Nutrition, and it really is a conscious evolution practice because it's not just focused on nutrition. I'm also a meditation teacher and a Yoni Shakti practitioner, and I mostly work with menstruating people, and so my work incorporates a lot of womb work, a lot of work with the yoni as well. But my main modality is food as medicine, and really using food to really bring the body back into balance. And a lot of my work just derives from the ancient wisdom of Ayurveda. I feel like as medicine is progressing, a lot of it is just returning back to the roots, as Ahnee has also said about how she uses nutrition in her practice, and it's the same with Ayurvedic medicine. And I also just I advise femtech companies also, and just bringing back more of the lifestyle piece into it and looking at everything from a holistic lens. I also got into this work from a really intuitive place. My background is Indian. South Asian, and where Ayurveda comes from. And a lot of what I grew up living with my grandparents and parents in the Bay Area, but a lot of what we did was Ayurvedic. We just didn't call it Ayurveda, you know? And so when I decided I didn't want to go to med school, and I was like, as soon as I decided that, like, all these doors opened up for Ayurvedic schooling. And so that's how I first forayed into preventative medicine.
Thank you so much. So this evening's conversation is really about getting back to the roots, adaptogens, Eastern medicine. And so for many people on this call, they're probably like, I don't know what adaptogens are. I kind of know what Eastern medicine is. And so Shizu, can you tell us a little bit more about adaptogens? What are they? What are their purpose? How do you use them?
Sure. I love, it's funny, we have a blog post that's called like Adapto what? Literally because I think everyone's just like, what is this word that like we're now all of a sudden hearing? But adaptogens in short, like are literally, I mean, the first word adapt, right? So our bodies generally crave homeostasis. So where things are like a little more fiery, we tend to be very yang. So then adaptogens, you want to actually be able to find and source, and there are various different adaptogens. There's things that are a little bit more yin versus yang and different energy properties. I'm sure everybody here can talk a lot more about that here too, but generally speaking, adaptogens help your body get back to a level of homeostasis and back to a level of calm. So if you're spiking up in terms of cortisol levels, a great adaptogen could be something like chaga mushroom, reishi, lion's mane to get you back to sort of like a more calm level. If you're a little bit too low on energy, something like ginseng or something a little more upper can help you get back into that homeostasis balance. So that's really what adaptogens do. And, you know, you can get a bunch of adaptogens at a lot of places now. But, you know, a great place to start would be, you know, just talking to your doctor, and as well as obviously you can talk to these amazing women on this panel as well as take our quiz, but there's so many ways to get started with adaptogens. And it's a great natural way to kind of ease into plant-based medicine and using food as medicine in particular.
Thank you, Shizu. And what is your favorite adaptogen?
I love lion's mane. Everyone knows that. I love it because I can eat it, and then I can also grow it, and then I can also take it in powder form. It tends to be a pretty bitter taste in my mind, but
Yeah.
I really like eating it because it kind of tastes like chicken, right? It's chewy. It has this like spongy like texture that absorbs sauce. Like we all love sauce, right? Anyway, I just love lion's mane. And then I like shiitake, obviously in Japanese. So the broth of shiitake and like very umami based is very soothing for the stomach. So if you're actually looking for, I think like a vegan bone broth, I love the idea of using like shiitake, umami flavors with nutritional yeast, and a lot of like grounding root based vegetables, especially as we transition into like fall and like vata season. But anyway, that's my favorite.
And that's great. Can you put in the chat so that people can see, because it can be difficult to spell. So pop it into the chat. Dr. Ahnee, what's your favorite adaptogen and why?
Sure. Well, with Chinese medicine, I feel like, you know, a key component of our work is with herbs, Chinese herbs. So there's a lot of different formulas, and a very common or popular one is Xiaoyao san, which I think in today's modern world with the level of stress and constant go, it's a soothing and relaxing formula that can be taken to really calm the nerves and help people really wind down and relax in a natural way. I would say that is one of my more popular formulas and one that I enjoy as well. But I think it's fascinating that more and more people are looking toward adaptogens, and ashwagandha is like a big trendy one for a while. And I just want to preface that you definitely, it's great to get excited and kind of interested in some of these adaptogens and trendy things. However, you want to work with a healthcare provider who's going to be able to kind of walk you through and customize something that's appropriate for you. So as much as there's a lot of hype around adaptogens, and even with Chinese herbal formulas, you definitely should work with a provider so that, you know, you're not just kind of out there messing around, you know, just having a guided practitioner to help you and to maximize their effectiveness.
That makes so much sense. I know that a lot of people like talking about getting those panels done. So you know that which vitamins you should take. You shouldn't just take a multivitamin. You should actually figure out which minerals and vitamins you're really deficient in. But it's always kind of like the marketing is always pushing like, oh, you need all these vitamins. But you're like, do you need these vitamins?
Right.
You don't know unless you take the test. So Nimisha, do you have a favorite adaptogen herb?
Yeah, my philosophy is so similar to Dr. Ahnee's because although so many adaptogens are so trendy and I constantly get advertisements for them on social media, I think we have to be very careful about which adaptogens we take because they may not work and they may not have that right use for you. And so that's really important. And then I think what is also important, according from Ayurveda, is that adaptogens are based on your energetics and on like kind of your bio individuality. And so like ashwagandha is a really popular one. It's really having its moment right now in the supplement world. But traditionally, ashwagandha was used for boosting men's libido, and it's more of a like a testosterone booster. So it's not appropriate for someone who maybe have PCOS. And I've worked with, you know, women who have PCOS and they've been taking ashwagandha and it was completely the wrong thing for them to take. So with that kind of aside, I do have my favorites, like actually, the feminine counterpart to ashwagandha is shatavari, and that is my favorite. And shatavari is an Ayurvedic herb, and it's grown in tropical places. And it stands for it kind of loosely translates as 100 roots, or the woman with having 100 husbands. And you know, literal translations are funny, but it's really because it's also a libido booster for women, and it's a adaptogen for women's reproductive organs. So it can really work for women who are experiencing amenorrhea, but it can also work for women who have heavy periods, and it can also work in the menopause years as well. So it you know, it truly is an adaptogen. It adapts to what your body is doing, but it works best for females. It's very cooling in the body as well. So just having that, like, you know, if your body is already tends to be on the colder side, you might need to take other adaptogens with it because it can be really cooling. And so that's one of my favorites.
Thank you so much. So if you guys could put that into the chat so everybody knows like your favorites, that would be great. Because I know if this is the first time people are encountering adaptogens, like, wait, what did they say? I understood like the effects and the benefits, but wait, how do you spell that? And so to give people a quick background on Eastern medicine, there are many different types of things that kind of make up Eastern medicine. And today we have someone who is knowledgeable and expert on traditional Chinese medicine as well as Ayurveda. So traditional Chinese medicine, TCM for short, comes from China. Ayurveda comes from India. So I want to speak more about these, these practices, these modalities. So Dr. Ahnee, could you speak a little bit more about traditional Chinese medicine and any other modalities that you use?
Sure, Alice. Thanks for the question. So traditional Chinese medicine is a very ancient, many thousand-year-old medicine. And I remember when I made a career change to go into this medicine, I thought, wow, I don't know if from the rest of my lifetime I will be able to absorb and learn all of the mass amount of information and knowledge that Chinese medicine has to offer. But one of the things I love about TCM is that it's rooted in finding the root cause of an illness or health challenge, and also treating the whole person. So you don't treat the disease, you treat the person. And it's a very integrative approach in the fact that you not only do tongue and pulse for Chinese medicine diagnosis, because the tongue and pulse are a representation and an insight into the body systems of the body. And similar to, I think it was Nimisha was saying about balance, and actually Shizu was saying about restoring homeostasis, Chinese medicine is all about returning the body into homeostasis and tonifying what is deficient and tonifying what's depleted and restoring balance. Because when your body is in balance, it has the tools necessary to heal itself. And that's actually a beauty with Chinese medicine and natural medicine, because you're not using surgery, you're not using pharmaceutical drugs, which can have a lot of other side effects. So when we allow the body to return to homeostasis and to be in balance, transformation can occur. And the body is an amazing machine. It knows what to do. But oftentimes, again, in our modern world, we're running around, stress levels are high, anxiety, the pandemic has had its impact. And so we need to sort of get back to the roots and just return to simplifying and tapping into our innate ability to heal ourselves. Don't get me wrong, there is a place for Western medicine. Surgery and all the advanced technology that Western medicine has to offer is truly amazing as well. But there are alternative options. And that's one of the things I love about Chinese medicine, that it's natural. It's about treating what's going on in the whole person. And so in my practice, for example, I not only provide acupuncture, herbal medicine, nutrition, but really try to focus on emotional well-being. And I think if anything that the pandemic has taught us, wow, it's just so much uncertainty, a lot of stress, anxiety. And so without taking a look at that emotional and mental health component as part of treating the whole person, you're missing a big component of what could be causing, dis-ease and disease. And so that's a huge one. I definitely want to emphasize that today. And then lifestyle, there could be things that, we're getting in our own way. So besides just exercise, but mindfulness, movement like Qigong and Tai Chi. So again, these are all parts of traditional Chinese medicine. Qigong is mindful movement, breath work, things like that. So there's just so much that encompasses traditional Chinese medicine. I know I've only scratched the surface.
That was a really beautiful kind of like 101, like basic kind of understanding of what it is. Because yes, it's thousands and thousands of years old. And so to really kind of give it justice in like a couple minutes time, it's very difficult. Thank you. And so Nimisha, can you share a little bit more about Ayurveda? I know that if people are on the call and they practice yoga, they probably have heard of Ayurveda, but kind of just giving, a definition and how you use it for your clients and for yourself. And you shared a bit already in saying that, we didn't really call it Ayurveda. It was just a way of life. And so much of, all of us on the call, this was just like a way of life. In some ways, like for myself growing up, I like ridiculed it because I was like, this is not cool. This is very different. And now I'm like, oh, it's cool now. And there's so much healing in that as well, kind of embracing your culture and forgiving yourself and just practicing compassion. But back to Ayurveda, Nimisha.
Yes. So Ayurveda, Ayur stands for knowledge or science, and Veda, Veda stands for science and knowledge, and Ayur stands for life. And so it literally translates to the knowledge of life or the science of life. And yes, everyone knows yoga, and yoga is actually the sister practice of Ayurveda, whereas yoga is more spiritual. Ayurveda is more quote unquote scientific, and they go hand in hand. It's actually hard to, if you practice traditionally, it's really hard to separate the two, because oftentimes in Ayurvedic medicine, the practitioner, the doctor will prescribe yoga as health remedies, you know, like there's yoga for fertility, there's yoga for heart health, and it's not really seen here in the yoga studios like that versus in India and in more traditional practices, the way it's practiced. And so so that's just one, but Ayurveda is really, it gets to, everything in Ayurveda is based on the 5 elements, which are ether, air, fire, water, and earth. And so everything in the universe is made up of a combination of these elements, like a rock, a flower, to a human being. And finding, when you work with an Ayurvedic practitioner, you find out just exactly how much of each element you have, and knowing that will create your individual type, like a dosha, and everyone's a combination of a dosha. So there's vata, pitta, and kapha, and knowing which combination of the dosha you are, which one's your dominant one, least dominant, they'll always keep you in balance. So like earlier today, I was saying, like Shatavari is very cooling. So it's a really great one for who has the more fire element in them, more of the pitta, you know, whereas ashwagandha is really great for more vata types, which have more of the airy element. They need more grounding and a little bit more fire. So, you know, and just knowing that, that's how not just adaptogens and herbs are prescribed, but also lifestyle. So again, it goes into the individuality. So not everyone is supposed to run a marathon, and not everyone is supposed to be vegetarian or vegan because they won't work for their body type. So if you're a vata body type, doing marathons and sprints, they'll actually burn you out really quickly, and also really you can have like injuries because of that, or just be tired or give up, or have increased anxiety. Versus the people who are kaphas, they probably don't like running, but they could probably benefit from running the most. You know, they need a little more movement, you know, and they're your, think of your like elephants, you know, like they're just very grounded and very nourishing, but they could use that push to get on and balance them out. So again, Ayurveda, it's all about also maintaining your homeostasis, your balance, and understanding these different energetics in life can help you achieve that. Ayurveda is also very complex. Like if you were to become an Ayurvedic doctor, it would take you over 10 years. You know, more than even here, where it takes you 8 years to become a doctor. So the science is very, you know, it's over 5,000 years old, and it also continuously evolves to incorporate like modern medicine in a way. You know, there's surgery in Ayurveda, but it's done differently. There's an understanding of like the air element and all of these other aspects to it, but there's surgery there. You have your 8 medical branches of like pediatrics, gynecology, all of that. But here in the West, where we're practicing it, because there are no Ayurvedic schools here to become an Ayurvedic doctor. And there's a long history of that, because actually when India was colonized, the British burned all the Ayurvedic schools and books, and were not allowed to practice it. So when India became independent 70 years ago, that's when Ayurveda started having a revival. So it's just, it kind of, Ayurveda is just still kind of reviving itself from that colonization period. And so that's why I think in the West, it's not, you know, you don't see many Ayurvedic doctors as you see Ayurvedic coaches or practitioners where they practice more of the lifestyle medicine here.
Nimisha, thank you. I didn't know that. And I think a lot of people on this call didn't know that as well. And I want to circle back to what you spoke about in terms of yoga. You know, in the West, people know yoga as a form of exercise, but what I like to share is like yoga is so much more. It really is a spiritual practice. It is a philosophy, a way of living, but it's been kind of commercialized, and people don't realize that there is that Ayurvedic component to it, that they go hand in hand, that you really can't separate the two. So something for people to take a note of, that there is yoga for everyone. It's not just if you're hyper flexible, if you know you can do certain movements. Like there's yoga for all body types and for all phases of like Nimisha had shared, you know, for heart health, for fertility, for people who are pregnant, and all of that. So I want to ask Shizu, you know, what was it like growing up in your house? And if you could share with everyone your cultural background. I know it, but not everybody does. I think you may have mentioned it though, but just how were these modalities, you know, adaptogens, other things kind of incorporated into your everyday life? Because I think for so many people who are not of Asian descent, they're like, this is new, this is so cool. But for us, like, you know, it's been a long time. And for myself, you know, it was tough when I was younger. I was like, I don't want to drink this vial of weird stuff. Just give me the cold medicine. And now I'm like, give me the natural medicine. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's funny. It's like a big thing that we actually talk about is bitter is better. And the realization that bitter means that there is not obviously any additives or sugars and stevia and all the things that we just honestly now, like, can you guys, like, everything, I look at the labels more than I do anything actually. And it's actually now become like cereal aisle paralysis. You know, when you walk through like the cereal aisle and you're like, don't know what to buy anymore because you want to get it all, but then you walk out with nothing. It's kind of like that. But yes, anyway, I love it. I like how we're all laughing. In general, you know, I grew up in a super traditional family. So my parents too would like basically never let me take Tylenol or Advil. I would never see capsules with like white bottles of capsules lying around. And if and when I took Advil, it was like, I was like dying. I was like on my 7th day of like a fever, and they're like, here's half a capsule. Like, but I never really got sick, to be honest. Like growing up, I think I count, like probably got sick like once every 2 years in terms of like a real flu or like down to the sickness. And I think that comes from the fact of just using food as medicine. I think so much of Asian culture and foods is, and every culture actually has this, a level of like fermentation, right, for gut health. And then some level of, at least in my family, traditional kind of recipes around, like we use shiitake broth as a really good example. We never talked of it as adaptogens, but in Japan, shiitake broth, a lot of like soup-based seaweed stuff has always been in our diet. But to your guys' point, it's now cool. So now we're talking about cool seaweed and cool mushrooms. Never was cool before. But my diet was always incorporating adaptogens, superfoods, and all of that. But I think it's actually, you know, generally a good thing that we're now talking about it more openly and educating customers, because I think more and more you'll see the market size continue to grow and more people shifting to natural. And yeah, you'll probably try some adaptogens that might not be a good fit for you, but that's, I think, part of the learning process to find what is good for you. Again, that's just my personal opinion. Obviously, we always want to let you guys talk to your doctors and all that, but I think in general, food is like the place where you can test and try out different things. And I think my family always grew up with that kind of in the mindset. Everyone is different.
Thank you, Shizu. Dr. Ahnee, what about you? What was it like in your household? What was young Ahnee like? And did she love all the things that her parents and her grandparents fed her?
Well, it's ironic. I did not grow up with acupuncture. I definitely remember smelling like hanyak is what we call it. I'm actually Korean by descent. And I never was really interested in like acupuncture or Chinese medicine per se, but similar to what Shizu was saying, food was our medicine. So, I mean, kimchi is the heart of Korean culture. So talk about fermentation. I mean, that's a great probiotic if I've ever heard one. So yeah, we had kimchi all around. We had lots of soups and broths. There's a special soup you eat on New Year's, mandu tok, and it's, you know, just all about rich, nourishing broths. There's also a postpartum soup that you have with seaweed as well. So, you know, I saw a lot of that and experienced that, and then see it in my practice today that, you know, all these nourishing foods and rituals and traditions I grew up with is kind of coming back, and I'm able to use them in my practice. And I love incorporating all of that rich culture and history, you know, in Korean culture into my practice. And, you know, trying to meld it and make it approachable in today's modern world. So there's a lot of great food-based medicine as well as herbal medicine. Korea actually has acupuncture and its own style of acupuncture, as well as Japan has its special technique in needling. So it's fascinating that all these different Asian countries you know, have a form of acupuncture and herbal medicine as well as food. So much to explore.
Yes, food is definitely medicine. That was true in my household. I am Chinese, and my mom would always be feeding me bitter melon. Bitter melon all the time. She's just like, there's just too much heat in your body, too much inflammation. And I just like dreaded eating bitter melon. But these past few years, I'm like, I'm really digging bitter melon, especially when it is spicy, which is not very good. It's kind of like it's like a little bit of heat, but it's like it makes the medicine go down better, but it's so delicious. And Nimisha, what are some of the foods, the medicines that you had growing up?
Yeah, I have the benefit of also living with my grandparents, and so my grandma would stay home and watch all of the grandkids, and so she cooked us fresh meals all day, and so I grew up eating really traditional Gujarati food, which is the region of India where my family's from, and like getting McDonald's chicken nuggets were like our treat. It really was. That's what it felt like in the 80s. And like TV dinners, like those were like our treats. And so, I think, just growing up as a first gen American, you go through your rebel phase and you're like, I don't want this. And then you come back to it and love it and have all this appreciation for it. So, but I remember like when we were sick, my grandmother would put like this like brandy type of remedy on our tummy. I don't know. It probably had a lot of herbs in it, and a little bit of brandy, but she would rub it on our tummy. And I still distinctly remember that smell, and I have no idea what it was. And my mom doesn't do any of that. Or like, there was this mud paste that my grandmother would have us put on our throats for sore throats. And, and there was this other one. I remember all the kids would run in the opposite direction because it was so bitter, and it's called gurvat, which means like bitter juice. And she would make, they would make us drink that for prevention. And I have no idea what that is. And I just remember how like it was a battle to get that down our throats. And because that bitter taste is what's so healing, and it's really missing in our American diets, that bitter taste, even from vegetables and fruits. And so those were some of the things. And now I'm, now I cook I, as a nutritionist, I cook a lot, and I try to incorporate as many different vegetables as possible into my meals, and also using the spices like turmeric, ginger, cumin. Those are all really great and healing in itself. People pop turmeric pills, but then they forget to actually cook with the turmeric, and a lot of that, the more of the healing comes from actually cooking with those spices, and using it in your everyday cooking, like the broths and khichdi. Everyone knows about khichdi, which is like a lentil rice combination with spices, and there's like 1,000 different kinds of khichdi throughout India. It just depends which region you're from. And in Gujarat, they give khichdi if you're sick or you're in transition or like seasonal changes, but it's not a celebration food. Whereas for my husband, he's from South India, and they actually use their version of khichdi as a celebration food. So it really, depends where you're from. And also, but yeah, I mean, I grew up eating a lot of curries. My family was not vegetarian, so a lot of like chicken also, and the broth is the gravy in the curry. That's the healing part of the Indian cuisine, because it's made with so many spices and simmered for a long time. And so that's where the healing actually really comes from, and it's part of just your daily meal.
Yes, yes. And so I want to switch gears really quickly before we kind of answer questions, because I know people have tons of questions. We only just have probably around like 10, 15 minutes left. Is why don't you think there are more Asians in wellness? And I will pass it to Shizu first. Shizu, are you there? Are you still there? Maybe she's having some technical difficulties. So Dr. Ahnee, why do you think that there aren't more Asians in wellness? I don't think that we're very well represented. When you think of a yoga teacher, even TCM, acupuncture, I mean, just tapping, EFT, emotional freedom technique, that comes from traditional Chinese medicine, those meridian points. But now everyone's just like, oh, like EFT, like tapping. And I'm just like, those are talking about the meridian points.
I'm not sure. I thought about this. And I guess it just depends on where you look. I mean, to be honest, I think we're spoiled here in the Bay Area. And there's a very strong Asian American contingency here. I will say, I do recall when I was going into my doctorate program, it wasn't 80, 90% Asian. There was definitely a mix, and definitely all different, walks of life or ethnicities, maybe 40% or 50% Asian. So it wasn't like the dominant group that was enrolling in the programs. I'm not sure how to answer that.
And that's totally fine. That's totally fine.
I feel like maybe I know that in Asian culture, especially in Korean culture, your parents are always saying you got to be either a doctor or a lawyer. Like that's only the two professions that, they want you to be. And maybe as a backlash, people don't want to be a doctor. I'm not sure. I know that growing up, I thought about being a lawyer, and originally I thought about going into law school, and then I kind of diverged, but not to be rebellious per se, but it's about finding that right path for you. But now, as I've gotten older, we embrace and we appreciate where we come from. We appreciate all the advice and the lectures our parents gave us now, because it's so meaningful and now it makes sense. And so I'm not sure why. And, when you say there's not that many in wellness, do you mean, in which particular field? Because I think it can vary.
This is true.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that we're seeing more and more Asian Americans embracing, some of the medicine, that is from their roots. But I feel like it's something that we start to appreciate maybe later in life, is my theory. And so I'm not sure. I don't know how to answer it.
I mean, it's important to, to share your opinion, and you're like, well, these might be some reasons, and also I'm not sure. I also think that yes, you're right, it really is determinant of where you live. I was based on the East Coast for a really long time in the Washington DC area, and when I started my company, Woo Woo Company, like, there weren't a lot of people doing it, and there were very few Asians, very, very few Asians doing it. And I was like, I guess I'll just be the one person who does it. And then of course I met more people. But it's just, I think so much of the marketing around wellness, when you're talking from like yoga to just really all aspects, I would say, even if you're talking about like physical wellness, nutrition, like, it's a lot of it's just white women. That's what the marketing is for. And now there's this process of decolonization, the importance of inclusivity and diversity these last few years, especially this last year. And so I think that we're going to see more and more Asian Americans really practicing these modalities and bringing a different type of experience, an experience where you're able to share, like, these are the foods that we ate when we were younger. We had no idea why, but now I have, like, the scientific background or the research to be like, this is the reason why. And so, Nimisha, can you share a little bit more about your experience as an Asian woman in wellness?
Yeah, I love this question. So thank you for asking it. I ponder this often, and a lot of my work is about decolonizing. And I think one of the reasons why Asians don't step into the space is because of that colonized mindset. Our parents tried. I'm not going to generalize for everyone because we're not a monolith, but just saying that, like, a lot of our parents came to the United States and they want to do something. They want us to do something different. They want to step away from that also. And for a long time, we were shamed by society. We were colonized, like in India. It became illegal to practice Ayurvedic medicine, and they only were supposed to practice Western medicine, and that stuck. That philosophy, it stayed in a way that, like, oh, Ayurvedic is backwards. Ayurvedic is indigenous, and that anything indigenous is like witchcraft and stuff. So there's a lot of undoing for that. And then when it became cool again, it became cool for white folks to practice it, but not cool for Asian people to practice it, right? Like like yoga in the early 2000s, late 90s, it was cool, but you never saw Indians doing yoga because that would be uncool. Like the doors literally were not open for us. And so I don't think that's true everywhere, but from a lot of it was true, like it's and even if you go to like places like Bali, like all the yoga studios, all those places are majorly overrun by non-indigenous people. And so you see this pattern happening worldwide, but I think there's also a reclamation of it. And people are starting to understand, like, we do have allies and we are creating our spaces. Like Shizu, she built her empire, like she's like building her brand. And I think there is that, like, we are stepping into the space. And I think we also need to create awareness. So like in Alabama, they didn't allow anyone to practice yoga. And now they're allowing people to practice yoga, but they cannot have anything Indian or Ayurvedic associated with it. It's like completely stripped of its origins. Like it's, and it's like the law. Like you can only practice yoga, but you can't say it's from India. You can't have any chanting. You can't have any Indian, and this is a real legislation bill that was passed. So or like Google has a whole yoga, like inbuilt yoga studio and yoga, but they can't bring any philosophy or spirituality into it. So it's completely stripped of its roots. And so I think there's a lot of work that we need to do, so we could persevere our wisdom and the roots of it, so people don't forget where it came from.
Yes, yes, very, very true. And it's hard because I have also encountered that when I'm doing like corporate workshops, people will come to me and they're like, oh yeah, we really want to do like a sound bath. A sound healing is one of my modalities. And then, you know, a couple days or a couple weeks later, this happened to me a couple months ago. They were like, oh, we're not sure because it's kind of really spiritual. Like all your website says a lot of spiritual stuff. And we just don't want, you know, to infuse, to integrate anything about religion or spirituality in our workshops. We don't want to offend anyone. And I was just like, okay. But it's just, it's hard. It's a fine line. It's a fine line. So we have a question from the audience, and now's a good time to put in your questions if you have them, everyone. So do you have suggestions on things to do before and or after taking the vaccine to support your immune system? So this is up for grabs for anyone to answer and for multiple people to answer.
I can start. Yeah, I am pro-vaccine. I think I have to preface that because, you know, when you're in the holistic world, you're either on one side, but I'm pro this particular vaccine. And I see that for so many reasons. So I'm glad this came up. I think, you know, you can do a lot nutritionally for yourself, like before and after. Stay away from any processed foods, especially sugar and alcohol and caffeine. Really minimize or eliminate that. You know, just kind of support your body so it can pick up the immunity and do its job. And, you know, we know that when we drink alcohol or caffeine or have sugar, it actually depletes us. It takes away our energy and takes away our nutrients. So, and then eat your bitter greens, like lots of vegetables, and have a lot of vegetables in your diet. And I say broths also. I love bone broth. I love mushroom broths. So a lot of the stuff we talked about, I think those can be really, really great. And then if you wanted to add in like supplements, like your vitamin D supplement, hands down. But then I'm sure Dr. Ahnee can talk about the adaptogens a bit more that you can add in during this time. And rest, you know, don't get the vaccine and then plan to go travel right away. Like give your body some time to rest. Like we, you know, just really take it easy, and to give your body that opportunity to do what it needs to do.
Yeah, don't be like me. I took my first shot and I was like, oh, I'll be fine. I went like grocery shopping in the evening. I scheduled a bunch of calls the next day and I was out for days. So rest. Rest is very important. Dr. Ahnee, did you have something to add?
No, I thought she said it perfectly. Basically, this was a discussion posed to a forum that I'm part of amongst other herbalists and acupuncturists. And yeah, you just want to let your body do what it needs to do. And you don't need to combat or try to boost more immunity or you know, you just want to let the shot and vaccine do what it needs to do. Let your body rest and absorb, and it'll take care of itself. Of course, all the things that Nimisha's mentioned about supportive food and nourishing things is very helpful, but you don't need extra things to help boost your immunity because that's what the vaccine's for. So trust in that medicine.
Thank you. And Shizu, if you are still there, did you want to add anything?
I am definitely still here, but I'm trying to figure out mute versus unmute and all this situation. You know, I think the only thing I would add is this kind of like a more of a closing note or just a answer to the question?
Oh, answer to the question, and then I think we'll need to wrap it up after this.
Got it. I don't really have anything particular to add if I'm being super honest, but yeah.
Totally fine. Totally fine. Okay. So last piece of advice from everyone. And after you share your advice, please also share how people can connect with you by putting your information into the chat. But for someone who's new to adaptogens, Eastern medicine, what is something that they can do to incorporate it into their wellness routine?
I guess I can start because I didn't answer the last question. So I think in terms of advice, honestly, I think you just need to trust your gut. Um, I think every person right now, including myself, gets swayed in so many different directions based on what social media says or what the news says or some referral thing or somewhat email. And it's actually very hard to feel grounded and like insecure about imposter syndrome or whatever. And so I don't know if that relates anything to do with adaptogens, but I think the best advice I have is to just trust your gut about, both things that you're taking supplement wise or adaptogen wise or life wise. Just trust your gut. You know best. You know how it feels for your body. You know if it's working for you or if it's not. So I would just lean on that as like my best guiding North Star, mainly because 5 people told me that today as I was thinking through investor conversations. Anyway, so that is the best advice I have. And you can find me at apothekary.co, apothekary.co. I'm sure you guys all seen it on the marketing docs. I'm sure you won't have a problem finding us. And my name is Shizu, again, like she went to the zoo. You can also find me on LinkedIn and find me and connect there. And I cannot wait to do this again or have another sort of what I call like a wealthy panel at some point soon. So I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you, Alice.
Oh, yeah. So lovely to have you. Okay. Next up, Nimisha.
Yes. Okay. So my top tips to getting into a wellness routine using adaptogens. I would suggest start small. Don't buy everything start taking everything at once, because one thing, you might be doing things that indicate each other, and then also it could be too much for your system. And that goes for supplements also, like your vitamins and minerals. Like, just start small and start with one and try to stick with it as long for at least 3 months to see if it makes a difference. Obviously, you want to discontinue if you have some reactions right away, but start with like 1 or 2 things. Like if you're going to take Shatavari, just maybe take Shatavari on its own. Don't try to mix Shatavari with like Vitex or something like that. And just really, and then also try to incorporate it in the way that it was meant to be. So oftentimes like powder form over like now you can get things in gummy form that's not traditional use, I've seen a lot of these like gummies coming out because it doesn't taste good, but the taste is a huge part of the adaptogenic medicine. And so really try to stick to its traditional form, and then support companies, buy from local companies, Asian owners, and companies that are also like fair trade and supporting the indigenous lands and plants from where it comes from, because I think that's really important. Otherwise, we're going to get into another environmental crisis. But then so just support also and choose wisely where you buy from.
Thank you. Dr. Ahnee.
Yeah, so I think the best tip or advice I have is take time out. I feel like the body has a way of sending us signals or nudging us when something is out of balance, whether it's a nagging pain in your shoulder or digestive problems or just sleep issues. But take time to really, I love this start of this talk with the meditation, but when you tap inward and really tune into what your body's telling you, don't ignore it. Investigate it. Find the right care team. Make sure you're approaching your health in a holistic way. So whether it's mental emotional support or nutritional needs, acupuncture, or whether it's, just seeing your primary care physician on, some Western medicine test that you want to go get done. Just don't ignore it. And health is so precious. So keep in mind that we want to protect it and preserve it and do whatever we can while we're healthy to preserve and live a full life in good health. So I don't know if I answered the question as it relates to adaptogens, but I think as being, finding the right care team, you can explore more things like herbal medicine, adaptogens, and nutrition. So just surround yourself with the right care team, and don't be afraid to move on if there's a practitioner that's working out for you. There's a lot of great practitioners out there. And if you'd like to find me or get in touch, my company or practice is Tao, T-A-O, Natural Healing, all one word. You can also follow me on Instagram, Tao_happy health.
Wonderful. And Nimisha, how can people connect with you?
Yes, I forgot that piece. My practice is called Moon Cycle Nutrition. So you could go to mooncyclenutrition.com, or I'm also a WellSet practitioner. And then I'm pretty active on Instagram, and my handle is at Moon Cycle Nutrition. I'm also on Clubhouse at Nimisha. So you can just find me on social media and connect with me.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I think I will end with this note that intuition is communicated a lot through our bodies. And the more we listen to our bodies, the more that we are able to deepen our understanding, not only of ourselves, but the world around us. And so thank you for joining us this evening and learning about adaptogens, Eastern medicine, and celebrating Asian Americans in wellness. WellSet, thank you for giving us this space. I hope everybody enjoyed this conversation. The replay will be available, and all the ways that you can reach out to us. Please let us know your questions. And you can find me at WOOWOOCO on Instagram. I'm also on all the platforms as well, but I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. Thank you to all of our lovely panelists. We'll definitely have to do something in person very soon, but thank you so much for your time.